My guest on Borders this week is Keith Hart, an economic anthropologist and writer with homes in Paris and Durban. His reputation is global. A scholar of Africa and the African diaspora, he contributed the concept of the informal economy to development studies. Keith has been described as one of the most creative intellectuals of the last 50 years. Self in the World, Connecting Life's Extremes is his memoir, and it is the best kind of memoir, one which helps each of his readers achieve a clearer picture of their own place in the world. It's inspiring to see how Keith Hart rejects, in his words, the habits and blinkers of specialists, inviting and celebrating instead unwieldy thought and wild exploration, and teachers let children be children. A passionate humanist, social and economic justice for the world is the quest into which he's invested his formidable intellectual energy. His desire is that humanity achieve the fullness and stature of its humanity. The memoir foregrounds the place of movement in healthy human life. He argues that if world society is to become viable, freedom of movement should be recognized actively as a human right. He issues a call to action. If movement is a problem, we urgently need to redress the inequality that causes it. Keith Hart proudly sources his thinking in everything and from everywhere, adventuring where angels fear to tread. I'm thinking of his years of living dangerously as a 20-something-year-old involved in criminal enterprise in the slums of Ghana, West Africa, while learning more about his neighbors, and of the myriad inspiring parts of his book, written not in academies, but for the layman, with intelligible and refreshing candor. It's his engagement with modern Africa that is, for me, the most exciting. Keith Hart, let me quote you. The period 1800 to 2100 is a drama in 3 acts, of which the last has just begun. The main issue will be Africa's population explosion and its political and economic consequences. Please unpack this for us.
Although Africa doubled its population in the 20th century, the main increase in Africa's share will be in the coming century. It was 7.5% in 1900, it's about 15% now. But it's going to go from 15% to 40% in the rest of this century. And this is going to be the biggest change in the structure of world population, not just now, but of all these 3, this is going to be the biggest in terms of its effect. And my question is, how can we make sure that Africans use this increased share in order to reverse some of the inequalities that they have suffered previously?
What economic models did Africa develop in the 20th century, which aren't suitable for the 21st?
The countries that are the regions that are fragmented and are subject to the manipulation of larger powers have to reduce that fragmentation in the first place, and they do it as a trade measure initially, and if they're lucky, they can then form wider political union based on what they've achieved economically. That is the policy. It's quite unavoidable as far as I mean, there isn't any region, that was fragmented and became more unified that didn't do it this way. So that's the task is not to move instantly, for example, to an African Union which has no economic basis and brings politicians from all the 54 countries to sign pieces of paper. That is not the way to do it. What you have to do is build on existing trade federations like, SADC and ECOWAS and East Africa and so on. Develop these, make them more effective, and then perhaps later think about ways in which they can collaborate. But you don't move to a single African trade federation instantly. You create federations based on existing attempts to coordinate regionally.
Despite the obstacles to development, you believe greater integration of African trade will be path-breaking for Africa and for world society.
I mean, don't you see that? I mean, in 2100, by present, Africans and Asians together will account for 82% of the world population. So what matters is what they do with each other, not the rest. So that it's not that it will be path break. Could not be path making if Africans screw it up. If they carry on with policies that actually weaken them rather than strengthen them. But the fact is that the whole world will be concerned with what to do about Africa now. Because I said that the Asian exporting manufacturers already know that the African population will be the most dynamic segment of the world market in the 21st century, for the simple reason that population is the biggest indicator of economic strength. There never has been a population as large as Africa with a median population of less than 20 years old. So the big question, moving to the second stage of this conversation is, what are all these youngsters living in the cities with nothing to do? What are they going to do? Because it's their energies that will actually power African development in this coming period. And I say that we're very lucky, the Asians and the Europeans had to master agriculture and manufactures, but actually the world economy is rapidly becoming a cultural economy.
Keith, the great powers won't go down without a fight. You know that. You lay emphasis, though, in your memoir on the increasing significance and relevance of cultural production. So could this cultural production be Africa's weapon of massive ascension?
Culture, I refer to entertainment, education, media, sports, software, information services like finance. So this is already the largest and fastest growing part of the world economy, and it's a result of the digital revolution in communications, because services used to have to be performed locally. You've got somebody to cut your hair, but now, thanks to the digital revolution, many human services like watching the Olympics on TV and so on can be transmitted without, requiring people to be in the same place. So, I mean, this has already happened. And what I'm saying is that the period of human history where what matters is material essentials, food, tools, and houses, and other things that you can make, objects that you can make. That we're rapidly moving to a global economy in which what matters is not what we make, but what we do with each other, like singing songs and whatever, or educating each other, or entertaining each other, or playing football with each other. I mean, and you have huge. I think I mentioned in one, that Nollywood is now the second biggest film producer in the world. And if you go to Manhattan on the east side, there are several blocks of market stalls selling only Nigerian CDs. The markets for digital, look at Facebook, how quickly it became a service for, billions of people. 2-3 billion people. There's no real limit to what we can do to each other once you remove the physical, objective vehicles that do this. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be able to do without food and houses and cars and stuff like that, but it's obvious. And I mentioned also, that Universal, the biggest music distribution company in the world, is already opened up in Lagos and considers that Afrobeat is going to be the next dominant world music.